Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to do a bit of a fun video today on Bart Sibrel's appearance on Joe Rogan's podcast and UFOs. Let's go.
UFOs are real and aliens are real, but they're not from outer space. And that's according to the top two UFO researchers after decades long research. So go to Sibrel.com and
So
pray
where do they
it's
think
up
they're
there in
from if they're
time.
not from outer space?
They're interdimensional and potentially fallen angels disguising themselves because they're liars of something, like you said, can't be proven or disproven. I'm from this galaxy
Yeah.
300 light years away.
So I purchased Bart Sibrel's book, Aliens from Planet X, and I went ahead and read through it. It was a very interesting book and it gives a lot more detail on what he's talking about here. So first off, in his book, Bart Sibrel says both Jacques Vallée and J. Allen Hynek finally uniformly concluded, independent of one another, after decades of research each, that UFOs and aliens, though existent, are not from outer space, rather they are from here on Earth. Both of these top researchers in the UFO field now instead refer to space aliens as demons, meaning fallen angels. Little bit of info on Jacques Vallée, the first UFO expert that Bart Sibrel mentions. Jacques Vallée was born in France in 1939. He completed an undergraduate degree in mathematics and received the equivalent of an MS in astrophysics. In 1961, he began his professional career as an astronomer at the Paris Observatory. So he's a pretty serious scientist, it would seem. And according to him, he saw a UFO as a child with his mother right next to him. They both saw the UFO. And 6 years later, while working on the French Space Committee, he witnessed the tracking tapes that were tracking a UFO deleted by a superior officer who was not named. And these two events really formed Jacques Vallée into who he was and sparked a real interest for UFOs and also made him realize that all the information humans have on UFOs might not really be accessible to most of us. It might be deleted and covered up. In the mid 1960s, like many other UFO researchers, Vallée was attempting to validate the popular ETH theory, or extraterrestrial hypothesis, meaning Vallée thought that these aliens were coming from outer space and he wanted to prove that. However, as he studied these UFOs more, he changed his view and began exploring similarities between these UFOs and other supernatural events such as cults, religious movements, demons, angels, and ghosts. He details what he believes are some potential links between these seemingly unrelated topics in his book Passport to Magonia. As an alternative to the mainstream science theory of the ETH, or extraterrestrial hypothesis, Vallée suggested a multi-dimensional visitation hypothesis, meaning he does believe that these creatures come to our world through another dimension, not from another planet. However, because he's going against the grain here, he gets a lot of backlash and he refers to himself as the quote heretic among heretics end quote. Jacques Vallée is quoted as saying, "An impressive parallel can be made between UFO occupants and the popular conception of demons." So, yes, it does sound like one of the top UFO researchers in the world is willing to admit that they seem a lot like demons. The other top UFO researcher was J. Allen Hynek, and he worked at the United States Air Force, establishing Project Sign, where they examined UFOs. He was recruited as sort of the skeptic at first. His job was to basically try to disprove UFOs and to try to show that there was nothing anomalous about these occurrences. He himself was very skeptical of UFOs at first, saying, quote, "The whole subject seems utterly ridiculous," and he described it as a fad that would soon pass. However, working in the business, he started to notice that a lot of the testimonies that he received from witnesses were very high status, sane, rational, level headed people, like military pilots and police officers, which deeply puzzled him. And he once said, quote, "As a scientist, I must be mindful of the lessons of the past. All too often it has happened that matters of great value to science were overlooked because the new phenomenon did not fit the accepted scientific outlook of the time." He also said in one of his most famous quotes, quote, "Ridicule is not part of the scientific method, and people should not be taught that it is. The steady flow of reports often made in concert by reliable observers raises questions of scientific obligation and responsibility." Along with Jacques Vallée, J. Allen Hynek worked at Project Blue Book and are certainly two of the most leading voices on UFOs. And they both reject the mainstream extraterrestrial hypothesis and instead believe that these creatures are interdimensional.
This is kind of what Tucker Carlson thinks.
I,
He thinks
I,
there's a spiritual element to it, and he thinks they've always been here, and he thinks that this is what's kind of documented in the Bible as like good and evil and
That's it exactly.
angels. And
I mean, that's what's going on. I mean, the top two UFO researchers said UFOs are real, number one. Number two, they're not from outer space. And number three, they're demonic. And that's what I talk about. Where it talks about fallen angels interbreeding with humans, it's talked about in Genesis 6, and creating a race called Nephilim, who were men of renown, world leaders.
Bart Sibrel claims that the race mentioned in the Bible called the Nephilim could actually be these aliens riding around in these UFOs that we are seeing and that we have witnesses reporting. So let's check out Genesis chapter 6 and see what he's talking about here. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. So this is right before God floods the earth. And if you read Bart Sibrel's book, Aliens from Planet X, you'll see that Bart Sibrel believes that this is why God flooded the earth, because there were so many Nephilim and mixed blood on planet Earth, and Noah and his family were the final family that had pure human blood. So, pretty interesting theory, but how do we know that the sons of God is referring to the fallen angels? Well, in Bart Sibrel's book, he writes, "The term sons of God, Ben Elohim, always meant angels when used in scriptures previously." And then we can check out Job 1:6 and Job 38:7. Let's just check out Job 1:6. "Now on a certain day when the sons of God came to stand before the Lord, Satan also was present among them." So this is when the devil appears to God and tries to talk God into cursing Job, essentially. It does seem like the sons of God in the Bible could very easily be referring to angels, even in Genesis 6. And according to Bart Sibrel in his book, the fact is, in Jesus' day and for thousands of years before him, and up until only about 150 years ago, fallen angels is exactly what Jews and Christians alike thought Genesis chapter 6 meant. Just thinking about it rationally, does it make sense that aliens could be demons? Well, I don't really know. I think a lot of that is beyond our comprehension, but I do think a lot of the connections Bart Sibrel is making are correct and they make sense. His claims are true. and I think there could very well be some kind of connection between UFOs and the demonic. But it's certainly an interesting topic, and it's something that I do believe is very important, even though it's tough to really know the truth about UFOs. I think they could give us a huge insight into our place in the universe, who we are, what our purpose is. And at first, I was very skeptical of UFOs. I did not think they were real. I didn't see how they could be real with my worldview of being a Catholic. But listening to Tucker Carlson and Bart Sibrel talk about UFOs has been one of the most eye-opening experiences, because now it seems like the most serious Christians are the ones who are connecting these dots. They're seeing what's really going on in the world. They're open-minded enough to listen to a lot of these explanations from these top researchers and top scientists, even if they go against the mainstream consensus, which science is not a consensus, by the way. As always, don't take my word for it. Do your own research, look into it. It's a really interesting topic, and follow the truth wherever it leads.